I think we're good. Yo, what's going on, everyone? Boy D Lloyd here, joined with my guy, bro. You guys seen him before. You guys have been in here for sure. My guy, Highfield's in the building, bro. We're gonna be talking about some NBA stuff. So go ahead and say what's up. Highfield, I'm happy you're here.
What's up, everybody? Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate you having me on today.
Of course, man. Of course, man. It's getting that time of the NBA season, right? Like it's crunch time. Like these games are starting to be meaningful, which is weird because we typically don't have meaningful games at this point of the NBA season, but we do. But we do, man. So before we hop into it, man, I'm gonna let
You
some
really
people.
do.
Yeah, I'm gonna give some time for people to get in here, um, and then we could roll, man. But on the agenda today, you guys seen by the title, we're going to talk about the Lakers. You guys know we had to talk. We had to talk about my squad, bro. The Lakers going to be out here. We're going to talk about them, man. They have a big game tonight against the New York Knicks. Who would have thought the Lakers will have a big game against the New York Knicks? If you said that at the beginning of the year, but they do.
Is it
They
2008?
do, man. Exactly, bro. So
Yeah.
we have we have a big game there today or tonight, and really a couple of I'm looking at the NBA standings, a couple of teams still fighting for positioning, fighting for playing games, um, and potential matchups. So I think that's the main things we want to talk about. Let's see, we already have my guy Daryl in here, man. Lakers got to rebuild. Uh, I don't know. I don't know.
Rebuild.
Might be too early to rebuild, man. Maybe too early to rebuild. They're still trying to win a championship. So I guess that's the cue, man. That we'll go ahead and jump straight into it. The Lakers, like we said, take on the New York Knicks tonight. No LeBron James. We did get a late scratch already. No LeBron James tonight. So they're going with Anthony Davis. No Schroeder. How do you think their chances are to play the Knicks, who just beat the Clippers?
That's rough. You know the Knicks lock up on defense, and if you look in the last 10, the Lakers are 3-7 versus the Knicks, who are 7-3. So you got to think with LeBron and AD coming in out of the lineup towards the end of the season, right before the playoffs hit, that's not a great start to the beginning of their playoff run, especially if they end up in the playoff game or the play-in game against the Golden State. Because if you get one game against Steph Curry, who knows what's going to happen.
That's the scary part, right? That's the whole
So
scary thing, with the Lakers, and kind of where I go back and forth with where I think the Lakers should finish, right? Because you would want them to be six. So you like the fan of me says Lakers take care of business
right,
tonight. You have an easy rest of the schedule. Win those games. You would assume or hope that Portland will drop two of the remaining games potentially, move you up to six. But if you're at six, the Lakers have the Clippers in the first round. If everything stands the way it is currently, that could potentially change. It
wow,
could end up being the
yeah,
Nuggets going up to three, but as of right now, it's the Clippers.
yeah. The Nuggets are only they're only a game back, so there's
Hmm.
a good chance it could change. And the Mavericks and the Trailblazers, they're only a half game apart for the 5-6. So
Yeah,
depending on where that ends up as well, that could affect it later on down the line, especially LA Lakers, Joe Johnson, and Chance Johnson. Well, I don't know about
that's the
all
whole
that one,
squad,
Daryl.
man. If this was
That,
like
that is a
2014, that would be a
yeah.
heck of a lineup.
That's just a bunch of OGs. That's what it is. That's the nicest way to
Exactly,
put it,
man. No, but I think
man.
it's
But
it's,
yeah,
it's interesting, right? Because where does
right,
gamesmanship come into play? If you're the Lakers, are you comfortable taking on the Clippers in the first round when you haven't had your guys and really everybody healthy in so long? Like, are you comfortable with that?
right. And it, I mean, granted, last year when they went to the bubble, obviously they had the break, and then they had a little couple games to get set back. They didn't play very well, and
Yeah,
then when the playoffs started and the bubble actually began, they took off. But after the short
okay.
rest in the off season and missing all the games, they didn't have injuries like they did last year, or like this year, like they did last year. And they had the break, so they could just be tired and worn down, and that's not going to be good going into the playoffs.
Yeah, the
Especially when you got
Lakers
to
have
play the
just
extra couple games for the play in.
yeah, I think the main part is injuries. Really, I think that's the main thing holding the Lakers back. But you have to consider, the continuity of really playing with people. They haven't had the full lineup, with the Andre Drummond in there. Where's Marc Gasol's minutes? Are they going to be? Are they going to exist right in the playoffs? Like we don't know, the lineups that's going to be there, and typically that just comes, with playing with each other all throughout the season. They haven't had that. They have not had that. So it's going to be interesting. And that's why I don't know if I'm confident. I think the Lakers could beat the Clippers in the series, but I don't know if I want it in the first round. Like I think the Lakers should, get some games under the belt, then potentially, get a series under the belt, and then take on the Clippers. And I think if that happens, the Lakers will be the favorites. But I think right now the Clippers, they want the Lakers. They want them in the first round. And in Staples Center right now, you're not going to have a lot of fans. So what the Lakers will typically have, double home court advantage, right? Because there's more Lakers fans. The Clippers fans, they're not going to have that. So I think a lot of those factors, and I think that's why, if you ask me personally, I think that's potentially a reason why we're not going to see LeBron James tonight against the Knicks. I think they rather him, sit out, be as healthy as possible. If they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. But I think they rather him be healthy as opposed to, rushing him out there. He get hurt again. You potentially win, and now, you're not looking good playoff time.
Exactly. And like you said, them in and out, the last thing you want to do is rush back and then get injured again, and then your chances are just over. If you lose one of those two guys, your chances are over.
Exactly.
So you got to try to play safe, but you also want to get some kind of rotation and rhythm and feel of how you're going to play in rhythm going into the playoffs. I feel like, to me personally, no matter who you have, is huge. So if you don't have a rhythm going into the playoffs, then it's going to be hard just to kick it in gear and take off. Look at the Clippers.
Yeah.
They thought they could just flip the switch, and they tried to do it, and it ended in a disaster. So who's not to say that because of all the injuries and all the missed games this season for the Lakers that it might not happen for them as well.
Right. Talent,
especially with new additions like Schroeder and right. Especially when you add new role players like Schroeder and Wes Matthews and who else did you bring on? Marc Gasol, Harrell. Like when you bring on all those guys, you really want them to go through and get some solid minutes together before the playoffs start. So because 1 week you get Schroeder running their offense, and then Anthony Davis comes back, and then LeBron comes back. So it's just. I do agree, though. I would at this point, I think I would agree with the LeBron list and go for the 7th.
You have to let LeBron rest up. Best scenario is the 7. That's the best scenario when it comes to the playoffs. But it's the risk reward, right? Because if you're 7, now you're in the play-in tournament, and anything can happen. And as of right now, the Lakers will play Golden State in the first game of the play-in tournament. So I think the Lakers are a better team, but do you want to risk Steph just being hot for a day? Because we've seen the way Steph has been, going this year, that he could light it up. Do you want to risk that he just has one of those games where he lights it up? Maybe you struggle, and now you're in a, win and get in, or win, lose and you're out situation against the Spurs or the Grizzlies.
Right. Well, that's the problem you're going to have, though, because in order for them to get to the 6th seed, they're a game and a half back, and I'm not even sure they have enough games to make up the distance. If that, they'd have to have Portland's going to have to slide really hard for them to avoid the other play-in game. And then once you get the play-in game, like we were talking about, you get Golden State, you get Steph. Who knows? You got to just hope that he gets his and nobody else has theirs. So
I mean, you will have to hope that Portland drops 2 games. Which is doable. Portland could potentially drop 2. They have the Jazz, they have the Suns, and they have the Nuggets to wind out their season. So it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible that they could lose 2 of those 3. Yeah, so they definitely saved the best for last.
And you got to think Phoenix. You said Phoenix in Utah, right?
Yeah.
And they're fighting for
fighting for 1.
Their game at Phoenix is a game and a half back, but it's still plausible. It could happen.
It's possible.
So I would think they would want to go for the 1 seed.
That's a huge swing when they play each other, and the 1 seed could potentially be
a
ticket. It could definitely be a ticket to the Western Conference Finals if you could get the 1 seed, because you're going to look at who's on the other side of the bracket, and potentially you could have the Suns or the Jazz, whoever fall number 2. You have the Clippers, and you could have potentially the Lakers all on one side of the bracket where you don't have those guys at all, man. As my guy falls out, man, he'll definitely be back. But that is something that you have to, you have to pay attention to. You have to pay attention to. We back, man. That was quick.
And drop, my bad. Off for a second.
Man. No, like I was just saying, like you have to potentially look at that one seed and how hard they're going to play, because you could potentially have the Suns or the Jazz, whoever falls to number 2. You have the Clippers. You could have, the Lakers potentially if they move up to 6 on the other side of the bracket. So that number 1 seed is coveted, especially if the Lakers, win tonight and the Lakers get that 6th seed.
Right. Yep. And like you said,
might be the easiest path ever to the conference.
Right. Exactly. And like you said, you would much rather go against a Spurs, Grizzlies, Warriors, somewhere around there, rather than like a Lakers in the first round if you're a Utah or the Phoenix. Last thing you want to do is match up against LeBron in the first round when you think you have a chance in the final to make it to the final.
If the Lakers get out the play-in game, obviously they're going to have meaningful games under their belt. So does that momentum kind of carry them into the playoffs, right? For instead of Utah and, the Suns, who have been resting for a week, would you rather have those games and then work into the playoffs? I think for the Lakers, they'll benefit them because they haven't played enough with each other, the last couple of months.
Right. No, I do agree with that.
So, with that said, obviously we spend a lot of time in the Western Conference. We'll look at the Western Conference and then we'll head over to the Eastern Conference. But as of right now, let's see what before we hop in, let's see. LeBron James and Anthony Davis got to rest for the playoffs to try to get the 6th seed. Are you saying like they should rest and try to get the 7th seed, or instead of going for the 6th seed? I think for the Lakers, man, I think you rest LeBron. You try to win tonight. You don't just blow the game. Like you 100% try to win tonight against the Knicks. See what happens, because there's no given that the Clippers are 3. Maybe they fall and they go down to 4. The Nuggets go up to 3. So you try to win the game, but you do rest LeBron James. You see how everything ends up tonight. If things go, according to plan, let's say the Lakers get the win, then maybe you bring back LeBron tomorrow against the Rockets, where he doesn't have to play big minutes, but he could kind of slowly acclimate himself and then kind of go from there. But I think that's what you do if you're the Lakers currently. I think that's probably what they're trying to do, honestly, by giving LeBron the extra day off.
Right, and you got to think too that if you look at the season how it's been going, he hasn't played since the injury. He's come back. He hasn't played a back-to-back, so I'm sure they're going to try to rest him one of the 2 games.
And he hasn't played with the playoff going up. Not trying to be. He hasn't played that good since he's been back. So
right.
So getting that work in, I think, will definitely help. AD has been playing good lately, so that is definitely a good sign. So like I said, currently, as we stand right now, you will have, and let me know if any of these matchups, intrigue you, right? You will have the Jazz against the 8 seed, which is currently the Warriors, but with the play-in game, those are going to be so hard to kind of, judge as to who's going to actually be there. But you have, when you go, to your 3 seed, you have the Clippers, and right now it'll be the Clippers and the Trailblazers. How do you feel about that matchup potentially happening in the first round?
Oh, man. See, with the thing with the Clippers, I just don't. After the bubble last year, I just don't know what to think anymore. They could have a hot streak, and Paul George goes to the playoff, lays a dud. Dame scores 40, and next thing you know, it's 2-0. So
he's waving goodbye when he pulls up from 40.
Yeah, we've seen it once before. So I just don't trust Paul George in the playoffs, and with Kawhi being in and out of the lineup, I just don't know how much I trust. But then you got to think, on the other hand, with Portland, granted they've been healthy and they got Powell and they've been playing pretty decent here lately, but they just cannot play a lick of defense.
Good defense. They don't know what that is.
And with the Clippers, yeah, exactly. And the Clippers shoot if I remember correctly, the best percentage from team-wise from 3 in the NBA.
Yes.
So that's not a good look either. So
yeah, I think if that matchup happens in the first round, I think you to me you easily pick the Clippers. I don't think the Trailblazers match up. I feel like we've seen this story, with them in the Clippers, just kind of playing. And when you look at position by position and what different lineups Portland could throw at the Clippers, I mean, I just think the Clippers win this series in like 5 games. I don't think it's too much of a sweat. I think it's more of a warm up series for the Clippers. I'm not saying that Portland doesn't have potential, to win one, maybe win two. I just
Yeah.
don't. I don't see them. I don't see them stacking up very well against the Clippers, especially in round one. I think the Clippers will be motivated to at least get out of round one, right?
Right. Yeah, especially after their performance last year and
Yeah,
trying to get the burden off their shoulders of the playoffs.
exactly. So I think they'll
But
try to be back. Now, a series that I think could be interesting will be right as of right now the fourth seed Denver Nuggets versus the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks. I think that one could be a pretty solid matchup.
Luka versus Jokic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's
no
gonna
Jamal
be
Murray.
right.
And how I mean they've been doing okay without Jamal Murray in the regular season, but how does that translate to playoff times? When your bench gets shorter, that rotation goes from 10, 11 men to 8, 7 men rotations,
Right.
and you don't have them because we've seen the performance from Murray last year in the bubble where he was just going off, right? Like you lose
Right.
that.
Yeah. Hmm.
But on the flip side, can Porzingis stay healthy, right? Like, there's so many questions with Porzingis. It's been a crazy season, right? Like, and you're hearing reports that he's not getting along with Luca, and a lot of
Yeah.
his
Right.
teammates ain't really liking him. But it's playoff time. Like, if there's ever going to be a time, where gather the troops and everybody get together and have one common goal, it'll be playoffs, right? So
Exactly.
I think that's an
I will
interesting
say.
matchup.
I will say the one thing that worries me with the Murray injury is you have Morris, who's the backup point guard. I like him, but the other point guard is the Compazzo guy, and if he's maybe 5'10", 5'9", so if you're playing him real playoff
Right.
minutes, you know that Luca is going to try to pick and roll. They're going to try to the Mavs are going to pick and roll him to death and get matchups to where he's getting switched on defense, getting picked on. So I mean, and with Will Barton being hurt, you're really down two starting guards at this moment for Denver. So I know Porter's been
Yeah.
going off, and I know that Jokic is good too, but how good are they when it comes to a playoff matchup and everybody just keys on those two unless everybody else try to get theirs, but they can't. So
Exactly. I mean, I think the injury definitely makes things tougher. It makes things a whole lot tougher, in my opinion, for the Nuggets. And I think they're a team that could, like I said, get out of the first round. I don't see them going further than that. But just speaking of matchups in round one, I like it, man. I think it'll be entertaining. I think I don't think we know. I think they're definitely going to go back and forth. We don't have like a clear cut who's going to win it, and that's what makes that one entertaining, man. So
that's what I think
moving to
too.
the Eastern Conference because we haven't talked too much about the. I don't think we rarely talked about the East at
I
all.
have
We'll go
to,
through
yeah,
the yeah. We'll go through the matches that they have currently, and then last we'll talk about the playing game scenarios and who we think will come out of the playing game. So, leaving off seeds 1 and 2, which is currently Philly and the Nets. You'll have your third seed, which I think they could potentially jump the Nets, but right now they're pretty locked into 3. It looks like you have the Milwaukee Bucks, and it looks like they'll more than likely be taking on the Miami Heat. So how do you feel? I think this will be a solid matchup, man. How do you think this one will turn out?
So if you would ask me like a week ago or so about Milwaukee, I would have told you that was my sleeper this year
Yeah,
because of Drew Holiday. I just feel like if they need a third scorer, he could get a bucket.
you
But
think that's the guy? Okay.
yeah, I do. I think that's the guy that's going to help them push them over the edge. But when you get matched
Was
up
okay.
against Miami, but Miami in the first round, if you
Mm-hmm.
look at the stats this year compared to last year, Jimmy Butler's stats, other than the missed games, are the same or a little bit better. So I see. I agree
Yeah.
with Daryl. I think
Yeah.
Miami. If you got Bam, you got uh, Jimmy Butler,
Man,
and then you got the two guards and the three wings that can shoot, spread them
this
out.
is this is not the matchup you want, right? Like you sit back and
No.
look if you're Milwaukee, and you're like, man, how are the Hawks and the Knicks above the Heat? Like you rather play one of
Right.
those two teams in this matchup. But yeah,
Right.
it's the Heat there, and the Heat, they are going to figure things out. They're not going to just lose a game and crumble, right? They are going to game plan. They're going to take away your biggest strength. They're going to make you play out of your game, at least attempt to, right? So I mean,
Right.
an organization ran that well, coached that well. and have players, as disciplined as the Heat have, and it's you never know. You never know. Like I was still, man, this one's tough. I think I would still lean Milwaukee, but
Mhm.
I could see it easily going 7, bro. Like I don't think I think this will be the matchup, the best matchup out of all the matchups in the
I
first
was
round.
I was gonna say this is easily my favorite first round matchup, just competitive wise. I think that
Yeah,
the two teams are just. I mean, granted, one team has Giannis, obviously that's a big push, but we
but
saw
we've
what the
seen the
Miami Heat
wall.
did
We
last
we seen
year.
them build the
Yeah,
wall against Giannis.
exactly.
Yeah,
But so and we saw. I don't know if you the couple. I think it was a week or so ago. The Nets, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee played back or 2 games in
hmm
3 nights, I think. But if you watch DeAndre Jordan just gave Giannis like five
yeah.
feet. So it's like if you want to pull up, try it, but we're gonna not give you
He was hitting
any.
some
We're
of
not
those
gonna.
though.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. He has improved the stroke a little bit,
But is
but
he
I
going to
don't
do
know
that over a 7 game series? And that's what you're betting against,
exactly.
right?
And you got to think too with him, are they going to implement something down the line where it's sort of like a hack a shack? Because his free throw percentage isn't the greatest. So
Yeah.
you would rather have him at the line than at the top of the key dribbling trying to make a play. I would think
Yeah.
personally. So his free throw shooting and the shooting in general, I think it's going to obviously everybody's going to say it's going to be a big factor. That's obviously a big
Oh yeah.
flaw in his game. I feel like, but it might be a glaring flaw when Miami and Spoelstra and those guys build the wall or strap up basically in the playoffs. And what is he really
Oh,
going to
for
do then?
sure. Like this is like we said. I think hands down the best first round matchup if it stands. If it stands, Milwaukee does have the potential to
Right.
move up. They're not going to move down. So they're at least 3, and you're looking at what a
Yeah, the
half
only
game
game
difference
bad.
between the Hawks and the Heat. So there's a potential that the Heat can move up to 5 over the Hawks, and that would
Oh
change
yeah,
it. And that makes everything different. All of a sudden, the Bucks versus the Hawks is way less interesting than the Bucks versus the Heat. So
right, right.
we'll obviously see, and that's what I say. There's so many factors, and I don't think we've had this entertaining of a final weekend in the NBA probably in a while. So I definitely like how things are turning out. But like I said, we're going to talk about it as it currently stands, and your 4 or 5 matchup will be the Knicks versus the Hawks. How do you feel about this one? I didn't think this would be a playoff matchup. If you would have asked me, I typically say
Uh,
October. When does the season start? In December. If you would have asked me in December, I
yeah,
wouldn't tell you the Knicks Hawks first round matchup. But what do you think about it?
man. That's just two teams that came out of nowhere, right? I will say
Yeah,
I did. I
maybe
did
we
like
seen the
the.
Hawks, but I don't know about the
Yeah,
Knicks.
I was a little bit more down on the Hawks. I
Really?
do get
Okay.
it. You went out. I do get it. You went out and you got some guys, but I felt like they were more offense oriented than defense. So I didn't know if they're just going
True.
to try to outscore teams like a Brooklyn or if they're going to try to lock up. So I didn't really. I mean, I thought they might have made the playing game, but I didn't know they were going to like be a 5 seed or 4 seed. This 5 seed at this
Exactly.
point. And the Knicks, like obviously we didn't see that either. They didn't really get any giant free agent signing like we thought they were going to like a Gordon Hayward or anything. But then you have Julius Randle out of well, not, I don't want to say out of nowhere, but
Out of nowhere, he's been
he
playing well
went,
lately.
he went up another level, I would say, over
For
the
sure.
between the seasons. So that obviously is a big stretch. And you got guys like adding Derrick Rose. That was a big. I would take Derrick Rose over
That's
Alfred
a
Payton 7 days out of the week. So I consider that an
100%, bro.
upgrade. Right.
Because Derrick
So
Rose could still go off and have a good game like he just did the other night with the
he
25.
can
I
get,
believe it was eight
that's
eight or something like that, right?
right. He can get you 20 easy if you really need to. So it's always nice to have that guard that can get a bucket off the bench.
For sure, man. Daryl said New York Knicks wins against the Hawks. I think we're all in agreement that I think the Knicks have been playing good. I think they have the confidence. I think they have the swagger, bro. Who would have thought that? The Knicks being this good, I think is good for the league. It builds up excitement. And I think
Right.
their off season is going to be crazy because you're finally going to have players wanting to play for the Knicks, and it's going to be crazy, man. It's going to be a crazy few seasons for them. I'm excited. I think
Right.
they can win this series for sure. And then now I'm going over to the playing games. You were just talking about Justin Fields was just talking about what about the Hornets? They're
Yeah.
currently at the 8th spot, right? And you're looking at the
Right.
first playing game will be between the Celtics and the Hornets. Winner will get the 7th seed. Um, this one's interesting all of a sudden, right? Because it felt like everything flip flop, right? We didn't know if I was going to say Lonzo Ball. We didn't know if LaMelo Ball was going to be back for the Hornets. He's back now for the Hornets, so everything is going good there. And the Celtics haven't been looking, crazy at all. And then now you topple all that with Jaylen Brown and the injury there, and him missing the season. Like, where do you stand with the Hornets?
I I think with getting Lamelo back, did Gordon Hayward come back? Is he back yet?
No, but I think he'll be fine. I don't
Oh,
think he's
okay.
back.
Yeah, I think if they have and him and Lamelo are healthy, I think that's a big addition because those two guys are just the playmakers for that squad. Like everybody else is mainly scoring roles, and then those two
Hmm.
guys are the facilitators, playmakers. So with those two guys back, not having Brown, and to me, the most disappointing season or most disappointing team all year has been the Celtics because when you got two young guys that are 25 or younger,
Right.
I feel like you should be elevated to an actual contending playoff seed, not fighting for a play-in spot, hoping that you don't lose and not make the playoffs.
Yeah,
So
it's one of
I
those
think
Lakers
I think
situations. I don't
Charlotte
think nobody assumed the
right
Celtics would be there.
right exactly, and I think that with Charlotte's season, I think that they just as more of a team basketball. Granted, I don't think their team defense is the greatest, but if you say that you do get matched up against the Celtics, which looks like it's going to happen, you keen on taking them. You're you got to rely on Kemba and the
Right.
other role players, and we saw Kemba this year. It hasn't looked pretty, and the other role
Love to
players
say
are.
Kemba, man.
I don't even know if some of the other role players deserve to play role minutes in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think losing Jalen
So
Brown is gonna hurt Boston a ton.
he's out. He's
I
out the
think
whole playoffs.
yeah, he's out the rest of the season.
That's what I thought.
So
Yeah.
yeah, him being done, I think that hurts them. Now, will they lose to the Hornets in one game? I I would hope not. I would hope they will be battle
Right.
tested enough that they can win without Brown for one game just to secure the seven. Regardless, I don't see them getting out the first round. Whether the 7 seed or 8 seed, they take on the Nets or Philly, they're in and they're out. But I would
Right.
I would hope they'll be able to at least get into the play in game. And then what about when you look at 9 and 10? You have the Indiana Pacers. You have the Wizards, who've been playing pretty well lately. Do you think any of these two teams could win two in a row and get in as the eighth or potentially, oh yeah, as the eighth seed?
If it's going to be anybody, I think it's going to be the Wizards. I haven't really watched much of the Pacers, but I have been watching a couple of the last Wizards games, and obviously Westbrook's doing his thing. He always does his thing,
Hmm.
and the rest of the team's shooting better from three, and just as a whole, they're getting guys back. They're actually healthy. They got a full rotation. So I think if anybody's going to
What
make any damage in the playoffs, it's going to be Westbrook and Beal together.
you think
So
Bill's hamstring issues are going
I,
to affect anything?
I that is the only red flag because if you're going to get a win in the playoffs, you have to do whatever it takes. And if that means he's got to try to play 40 minutes or 38 minutes or whatever it may be, like you said, how tested is the hamstring
Yeah,
to handle a load like that when you and Westbrook are basically carrying the whole team. So
yeah. And at this
it's
point,
gonna be tough.
between I mean, it's still not over. They could still move up potentially to eight. So that
It's
last
true.
those last two spots are tough. They're only a game and a half behind the Hornets, and the Pacers are only a game back of the Hornets.
Right.
Now with the last 3-4 games left from these teams, so I think a lot of it's interesting. For sure, I think a lot of the interest is definitely on the Western Conference to see what happens with the Lakers and things like that. Let's see. Daryl Evans says, "Yep, Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal will win the playoffs. Will win in the playoffs. Washington Wizards will get very deep in the playoffs. I don't know if they'll get very deep because your
I,
first round is going to be between. Well, if they have 10, your first round is going to be Philly because I don't think the Nets catch Philly. So
right.
first round is going to be Philly. I don't like that matchup um, for Washington, man. I think Washington. I think they took too long to get into form that they are right now.
Right. Well, their start to the season was basically the
It was
season from
terrible,
hell.
man.
So
It
yeah.
was terrible,
So
man.
when you start out 3-15 or whatever the record was at the beginning of the
Yeah,
year, and then you miss 3 weeks, it's just hard to get
yeah, they
going. But
sucked, man. But they're playing
yeah,
good
I
now.
will. I will say I agree with you. I do think that they will make a noise. They will be fun in the playing game. But once you get to that first round, you get matched up against one of those juggernauts.
Tough matchup, man.
It's gonna be bad. Yeah, it just
All right, last
there's a
question
reason
before we get
they're a
out of
one
here.
seed
And you guys let me know in the chat. This question's for everybody, man. Name me your favorite out of the East and your favorite out of the West. Just pick one team.
right now off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna go East. I'm gonna go Philly. West. I'm gonna go Phoenix.
Phoenix. Okay, that was a different one.
Yeah.
Uh, like I said, if I had to give mine right now, in the Eastern Conference, I'm with you. I'm on the Philly bandwagon. I think Philly, they've been playing really good, really good basketball right now. I think that's going to continue. Good coach as well. The Western Conference, man. Can I be? I can't be biased to say the Lakers, man.
Yeah. You can
I'm
be
going to
biased.
go. I will still say I will say the Lakers if they can get everything healthy and figured out. If I can't pick the Lakers, then I will go the Clippers are the second best team in the Western Conference. I think over the Jazz, over the Suns. I just don't. I like what the Suns have done. I really do, and I like what they're building there. Um, I just don't see the Suns in a 7-game series against one of these top teams coming out on top, man. I think that's going to be tough. I think they may need another season or two. But then you lose Chris Paul. I don't know, man. I think it's a weird thing. But I will go with the Clippers right now if I can't pick the Lakers. Blackface Sports says Lakers versus Sixers. I think that would be a heck of an NBA Finals matchup.
Yeah, so he does agree with you.
Um,
I will say the only thing that worries me about my Phoenix pick is Aiden. I just
mhm.
I like everything I like the whole squad. I like the addition of uh Crowder at the 4. He spread the floor.
Yeah.
Bridges has been playing really well. Booker's obviously going off. You have Chris Paul who
You
runs the
have my
floor, but
MVP in Chris Paul.
yeah, exactly. That's the kind of season it's been having. Go from missing the
Yeah.
playoffs to being a 2 seed, but I just I do like what Phoenix is doing. I like their defense. I feel like they can get a bucket in the playoffs that they really need to. As CP3, he's shown that. The only thing, like I said, that worries me is Aiden. And if he doesn't show up, or if he has a no-show game, it might get ugly. Especially when you got to go against a Jokic or a Davis,
Hmm.
or I mean, there's a couple other big men in the West that you got to be worried. Like even like a Zubac or somebody like a
Yeah.
Ibaka on the Clippers. Like even them, if he doesn't show up, or a Gobert, like
Yeah. Oh yeah,
it
for
might get
sure.
ugly. Yeah.
Yeah,
If
man.
that matchup does happen, I was trying to think of potential matchups, but yeah,
That could cause
if that
issues
matchup
for
does
sure.
happen, then it could get ugly.
And I'm interested to see how the Nets play. That's just one thing I'm interested to see how that works because we haven't seen them. We just don't know. We know the potential of the Nets is clearly running all the way to the NBA Finals and maybe even make light work in the finals. Like we know the potential is there. We just haven't seen it.
Right.
So
I
the Nets
put
is a question mark.
I put them kind of in the same boat in the Lakers, not as in like the team success
Yeah.
wise, but in this part that you're not going in with a clear rotation and rhythm into the playoffs like the Lakers, with like not having James and having Kyrie and KD in and out of the lineup all the time. So yeah, like you said, there's potential, and you got those 3 names. But if you don't have any rhythm or experience playing together in like a hard fought game where you got to lock up or strap up to get a bucket, then who knows?
For
And if you
sure.
got to get a stop or a rebound, who knows if they can get that either? Because do they really want to play DeAndre Ayton and like a Blake Griffin and Claxton big minutes in the playoffs, or do you want to run KD at 5 and kind of go small? So
I
like,
think you have
what do you
to.
do?
But
Especially when you get
when you
matched up with like a Embiid, what do you do?
that's the Achilles heel, right? For the
Yeah,
Nets don't want that matchup. So it's they're going to miss Aldridge. I will say that they're going to miss Aldridge, man, because he could have definitely helped out a little bit with those
right.
matchups. But let's go ahead and end this here, man. We've been going rambling over 30 minutes. I appreciate you, Hyphen, for coming on. Let everybody know where they can follow you. It's your plug time.
Plug time. Honestly, I don't really use social media, so there's nothing really that they could.
So
I mean,
you're
other
off
than
the
the
grid.
off the grid a little bit, yeah,
There
off
you
the grid
go.
a little bit. Other than on here and maybe some comments here and there, this is about it. Honestly, I don't really have
All right.
anything to
Well,
plug.
you guys could catch him here when he comes in on live streams, man. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Y'all know to follow me. All social media at Deloitte TV, man. Make sure you guys leave this a like, subscribe, all the YouTube things. But I appreciate y'all for coming through, man. It's your boy Deloitte. I'm gonna see y'all next time.